What is up, everyone? It is a long time coming, making new content, talking about new topics. I've been gone for quite a while, just focusing on life, going through everything that it has to throw at me, everything that everyone's dealing with currently. But I wanted to release a quick video because I've been thinking about a lot of topics surrounding dogmatic approaches to training and how that ultimately sets you up to never achieve your full outcomes that you could. So, I used to be a very firm believer, as seen by a lot of the content on my website and my YouTube channel, of strictly bodyweight training. And now I've had the opportunity to get back into the motions of participating in weight training and trying to try out new methods of programming consisting of power building, more bodybuilding, mind muscle connection kind of bro workouts, and still focusing heavily on doing a lot of body weight movements, especially to focus on the development of mobility and keeping my relative strength higher, especially since I've been cutting for a decent duration of time. And most people know when you're cutting, your absolute strength will either stagnate or regress, and participating in bodyweight training tends to alleviate a little bit of those feelings of, oh, well, I've lost a lot of my strength, like, am I actually doing things correctly? So it kind of alleviates a lot of the mental pressures and associated potential depression or sadness that you might have if you feel like you're regressing in some forms, especially if you've been cutting for a long duration, which most of my cuts are relatively small caloric deficits. So I do it for longer periods of time. It's just been the more sustainable approach for me. And I've been thinking about that a lot more recently as well. Just while I don't feel like, I'm as large as I should be, I've also been able to keep a relatively similar body composition over quite a few years, especially since I initially lost the weight. So it's been working out pretty well. So I keep on sticking with that. But the big thing that I wanted to talk about was at this current moment in my training life, in my regular life, I am starting to realize how important it is, and especially for beginners and early intermediates, to fully realize their strength potential and overall fitness potential isn't just exclusively working in one dogmatic or pragmatic view of training. So when I first started out, especially when I was getting really focused on calisthenics, I was like, this is it. I've seen results. This is how I built up my back. This is how I feel like I got mass on my triceps. Like, you can do this anywhere. F gyms. I don't care. Like, body weight training is the end all be all. And that, unfortunately, is not what I agree with anymore. Like, I love body weight training, and I think there is absolutely a place in your training for high intensity interval training, circuits, weight training, weighted calisthenics, body weight movements. They all fit their own specific point. So that's been a long time coming, just being able to go, yeah, like, bodyweight training and weight training both have their positives that the other one doesn't really, both have things that they are extremely proficient in. And if you pick one over the other and you never indulge in the other one, more than likely you're going to run into issues. So I've seen a lot of very strong people that can't do dips, or do dips with a terrible range of motion, or can't do pull-ups, let alone full range of motion pull-ups. Like, their absolute strength is really, really high, but their relative strength is embarrassing, to say the least. And one of the big things that I see with mixing the two is it keeps you honest to, especially if you're bulking, like, making sure that you're not exponentially speeding up and just getting too fat too quickly. Because when your pull-ups start declining or you just lose tremendous progress, like pull-ups and chin-ups and any type of relative body weight pulling exercise is incredibly hard. And if you're not keeping your relative strength high enough or on par when you're bulking to the point that you're not like losing your numbers when you're doing these pulling exercises or pushing exercises, that like keeps you true to the fact that you're not like overdoing your caloric surplus. So it keeps you honest with, am I getting too fat too quickly on this bulk? The other thing too is I just think that there is a large market or area of effect that bodyweight movements have. And I also know personally from my experience that it's very easy to cheat on a lot of them. So I've been doing really heavy chins and high volume chins, and I recognize the fact that I pull with my forearms and biceps, which is probably one of the reasons that I struggle so hard developing that as a skill, a strength movement, and getting a good mind-muscle connection with it. Which leads me into another point. There's a lot of movements in bodyweight training that you can do and go through the go through the motions, and you can complete these reps. But when it really gets down to it, while doing these more isolated bodybuilding movements, I've recognized that I don't know how to contract my lats optimally. When I'm doing wide grip pull-ups, I'm pulling with my biceps and forearms, and it feels really uncomfortable because I'm not engaging my lats. I'm not getting a good squeeze in my lats during most of those pulling movements. And the reason for that is because all I had when I was doing bodyweight movements was, okay, well, I'm doing negatives and I've gotten my chin over the bar. I didn't know what I was trying to feel. And getting to do things like lat pull downs lets me lower the weight so I can get a better contraction on things like my middle trapezius, my rhomboids, and my lats. And I can get really good scapular depression and a big squeeze for high reps. And of course, you can do that with a resistance band on a bar, but one of the issues with that is you're still kind of just pulling, like you're not stationary, really focusing on the lats being contracted or getting a big squeeze and a giant pump in your back. Like if you don't have that developed when you're doing bodyweight movements, more than likely you're going to start compensating with your stronger muscle groups. So you're missing out on a realm of hypertrophic gains that you could be getting by mixing your training. The other thing too is I've been working primarily in giant sets, which I think currently I have the most developed, coordinated, and the most developed and strong my core has ever been, along with increasing my relative work capacity. So, by incorporating antagonistic muscle groups, which I learned from Brian Alrouche doing strongman, and then also integrating that into the giant set format. So you're also doing core work, which traditionally I either neglected or kind of tacked on, because you always hear people say, you don't need to do direct core work. Since directly working my core in these giant set formats, I feel stronger during my actual movements because I'm working on maintaining and bracing, which is phenomenal, be it in a handstand or a deadlift. Being pre-braced and really feeling your core activate, there's a reason that if you go on like the bodyweight fitness subreddit, they're going to have like these pre-activation core exercises because you're going to be stronger anytime that you're engaging your core during a lift or a movement. So you're not going to see someone who's nailing out freestanding handstand push-ups with a lax core. That's not going to happen. So directly training that has been invaluable in increasing my strength, letting me keep tension for longer, maintaining my posture, my balance, my coordination in general, and I think that it's definitely been helping reduce a lot of tweaks that I normally felt when I was doing bodyweight training and I wasn't integrating it. As well, I've been doing interval training or throwing in like burpees or some sort of Metcon or some sort of conditioning at the end of each set. I usually only push it until it starts getting a little difficult, breathing a little bit heavier, feeling my heart rate go up, and then you finish the set and you rest. So it doesn't add that much more time onto it. You get close to 2 to 3 to 4 times as much work done within the same time amount. And it really stops you from being like strong fat, which isn't an issue if that's what you are. But I think as a human being and somebody who's training, you should be multifaceted, which in this instance is being able to move heavy weights safely, be able to move light weights and feel a really good mind-muscle connection, and being able to hold positions safely. Like if you're doing isometrics, straight arm work, anything of that magnitude. You should also be able to do high repetitions. I know for me, I was like, when I first started out with barbell training, 5x5, 3x5, 15 reps, 25 reps max. Now I'm getting into these situations where I'm doing upwards of 5 sets of maybe 10 to 20 reps. That's a lot of reps. That's a lot of blood flowing into those active muscle groups. And there's so many different mechanisms of action or points, vectors, if you will, for hypertrophy to affect us. And while there is science on all of these different fields, the rough kind of guideline is as long as you're 1 to 3 reps honestly shy of failure, you're gonna receive a hypertrophic effect. And I'm a big believer in nutrient delivery, so getting blood flowing to active muscles I think is always going to be beneficial. It's going to make your heart work harder. You're going to get more nutrients to your muscles, and I think overall it's just nice stimulus to fatigue. You get more work for your muscles, which is ultimately always going to add to the accumulated effect as long as your recovery is on point. So doing things like conditioning at the end, doing high rep, I really like doing high rep basic body weight stuff, and also doing the lower rep weighted body weight stuff, or doing skill work. But skill work's a little bit of a different beast. I would probably chalk that in with an active recovery thing, since a lot of the time you won't be eccentrically loading it, even if you're doing an isometric. Well, that's a topic for another video. I've started to ramble somewhat, but the big point of that is right now I feel the most fit that I've been in my entire lifting career out of the 5 to 7 years. And that's from when I was only jogging to when I was doing 5x5 and I had squat every day as one of my routines, and I got my squat up really high relative to my body weight. And then even when I was doing bodyweight training where my relative strength was there, and I was leaner and smaller and I was doing tricks, I didn't have that conditioning. I wasn't pushing myself. Right now, I am working within a dynamic that I'm strength training with weights, I'm strength training with body weight, I'm keeping skills and working on skills. I'm working my core more than ever. I'm developing coordination. I'm developing speed, power, explosive movements. Like I'm doing jumps, I'm doing conditioning, and it doesn't feel overbearing. It just feels like it's made me a better athlete, exerciser, recreational fitness person, whatever I would be classified as. I think all of that has benefited me to a point that my views have changed. And I think being able to admit that what you originally believed in isn't always what you suggest to people or necessarily is the best, that's fine. Like being able to objectively look at something and go, yeah, I think mixing this is going to get you the best results. Like pure body weight, if that's the way that you want to go and that's how you're going to be consistent, do that. But in the end, I'd really love to see someone who's doing maybe pure body weight if they love the main majority of it, and then doing additional things like dumbbell high pulls or face pulls. Yeah, you can do face pulls on rings, but again, I really struggle with the mind-muscle connection. there's a point that it's just really uncomfortable and awkward to get into certain positions for some of the movements. Like, you can do ring flies. I don't get that feeling in my chest. I really struggle having a chest mind muscle connection, and I realized I was always pushing through my triceps on push-ups, while my chest is never gotten that kind of going out. I don't have any depth into my clavicle. It's just kind of like broadened, and I think a large portion of that is I was getting a stretch, in essence. Like, of course, if you're going to do this, you're always going to get a stretch. But now I've gotten more pec development because I'm incorporating the mind muscle connection on a fly type movement. Like, I have to do cable side presses, and that's how I get a nice contraction in my pec and my upper pec. And while it might not be optimal, like, combining that with my rows and my chins and my weighted chins and burpees, like, all of that has made me such a better athlete. So don't hesitate to combine things. Also be able to know when and what might combine well, so you don't want to do things that are kind of dangerous per se. So maybe not training deadlifts and backlifts like you've seen people do. I mean, backflips. But, like, is it really going to hurt you to throw a couple of static hollow body holds in at the end of your superset, which I would always suggest supersetting because it saves time? No, that's not going to ruin your performance, and it's probably going to help you brace better and, in the end, make you a more fit athlete. Like, focus on the things that you like to do, that challenges you, that you want to consistently do. Incorporate those. Don't feel stuck into one camp because it's like body weight is the only way. Do your body weight routine and throw in curls and tricep isolations if you want. Like, if you want big arms, use the tools at your advantage. Like, don't limit yourself to have or use one tool because you feel like, oh, I can't go against this. Like, I fell into that, and it stunted me from being the best that I could. And right now, even in a cut, doing more than I ever thought that I was able to do while progressing. Like, relatively, my strength numbers are low, so this is going to have to change, and I'm going to have to adapt with it. But right now, I am the strongest I have ever been. I think I look the best that I ever have, or close to it, and I plan on taking that further. And ultimately, like, I wouldn't have done that if I was still stuck in my ways. And it's like one of the biggest things that has occurred to me over my time away, and that I want to help teach my audience and anyone that's willing to listen. So, key takeaway: if you feel like you could be adding more, or you want to do more but you feel so stuck, challenge yourself. Add more. Do different things. You're not going to be stunting yourself in the long run if you're like, man, I really want to do body weight, but I feel like I'm going to lose my weight training numbers. Screw it, dude. Like, incorporate it, or do a block. Like, do a block of body weight training. Do the things you want to do. Incorporate the things that you want to incorporate. Look to the people that are doing it and have success. And if you want to do something similar, run it. You are the only person that knows how you respond to your training. So, thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe, follow the channel, check out my website. It's been a long time. I'm planning on adding more, getting back into it. Really enjoy it, and I want to share my thoughts with you. So if you have any questions, comments, leave them down below, and I'll see you next time.